Good evening, everyone. It is 6:30, and I will call our meeting to order. And I'll start by reading the roll. Rebecca?
I'm here.
Phil?
Here.
Neil?
Present.
Mike?
Here.
Mark?
Here.
Susan?
Here.
John, myself, present. Alternates, Zach, Michael Bouchard,
Here.
and Peter Julia. So we have full attendance tonight on the planning board, so Michael, you may join us for discussions, but not for voting this evening.
Roger that. Thank you.
So up next, review of minutes from the November 2nd meeting. I noticed a couple of things. Page 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 lines down. What we're willing to adopt either was, it seems like a sentence fragment or something. And then, more importantly, probably, either way, yes, there we go, either way. And the next one should be CEDS, SEDS, Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy,
Agenda.
not
Is
seeds.
this it?
Kind of homonyms, I suppose.
Is extra?
I had a second one in my stack.
I don't know if you want to clarify or not also on page 4 under Amendment 7 for the OSRD, and we'll replace with a whole new section, which is actually in the, not clarified in here, it's in the subdivision regulations.
There's something else in the subdivision regulations. Or is it all going into the subdivision regulations?
The OSRD is being removed from the from the zoning ordinance, except for a reference that says, look in the subdivision regulations.
Okay,
At least if that passes.
yeah. Okay.
Well, if it makes it to town meeting and then passes. I see some people looking at other stuff. If we're done with the minutes, I take a motion.
A motion that we approve with the amendments as discussed. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, so the minutes are approved with the amendments. Let's see. I'm looking at the minutes thinking they were the agenda. Like, that's not right. All right. Communications received. Any communications, Joseph?
Yes, a number of communications. Many things came in today as well with regards to tonight's meeting. So those were in a very recent email, and they're also on the counter here. We have some new items related to the site plan, which I can cover in more detail now, or when we get to the site plan. And then a few items that relate to the Plymouth Energy Commission solar array project, and then also several items related to the zoning amendments, both those discussed last meeting on the 2nd, as well as the Fairgrounds Road overlay district text.
I suppose we can get to each of those as we get to them in the agenda. All right. All right, so up first then, or not first, next, we have applications for public hearings. And the first of those is a continuation of a site plan review of Slater Holdings LLC for a self-storage facility. So it's a continuation of a hearing on an application for site plan review from Horizons Engineering on behalf of property owner Slater Holdings LLC to develop self-storage facility with an office and associated site improvements on parcel 207076 located on Hutchins Road, Fairgrounds Road. And so this was an application we saw at our last business meeting, and we'd asked for some clarification and some studies and such, and so we're going to continue with that. So if the applicant would like to speak to where we are currently, we do have some
Can we just ask, we revisit where, I mean, the last I remember, we were sending stuff out to,
so we sent stuff out to the town engineer to look over in terms of drainage, and we asked for more information. I'm just trying to recollect this off the top of my head here, about lighting, decision about the fence with 6 or 8 feet we talked about, and I think they can jog my memory.
We do have the engineer's report,
We do?
and we have
A response to it?
responses to the engineer's report from Horizons Engineering with updated plans.
Yes, and that was some
Are
of
these
the,
plans, the ones that were submitted today?
Correct. Yep. And there's a photometric set that is separate from that packet, but was also received at the same time, along with the response to the engineer's comments.
and I believe at our last meeting, we also talked about addressing community concerns about, well, part about the lighting and the fence, and also opening hours, and we, I think, expected to hear some clarification of some of those concerns tonight as well.
so it seems to me like the engineering report has been, that's been covered.
It's been addressed, and we
It's been
can,
addressed, and I mean, it looks like everything has been responded to.
yeah.
How are you guys?
Good.
I'm
Oh.
Colby. I was on the Zoom meeting last time.
Yes, are we podium free this evening?
Yes, so we do not have a podium this evening. We have a microphone there that if folks addressing the board can kind of, you don't have to be right next to it, but just kind of generally voice towards it. Sorry about that. We are not sure at the moment where the podium is, so improvising.
Well, luckily I'm short, so it's right there in front of my face anyway. So, I'm Colby. Thank you. I apologize for not being present on the last meeting. I believe Chris is here as well from Horizons to speak on the engineering
Okay.
aspects of everything we talked about. I just wanted to kind of introduce myself, and then I think Chris starting on the engineering, on the comments that he sent over, and then I'll sit down. I just wanted to say I'm here and happy to answer any questions. We went back, gave it thought from the last meeting, and hopefully what we propose today you guys are happy with.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Chris, would you like to address us and explain some of the updates?
Do we need to unmute him? Oh, there he goes.
I think you might be trying to talk to me, but I'm only catching about every fourth word here.
I mean, should I be closer to the is this better? Or is it the connection?
That works. I can hear you clearly now.
Okay, I'll move this closer.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, we received the letter from KV Partners, the town's engineer, early this week, and worked to address the 5 comments that he made. Several of them were just drafting related errors that we have corrected. One in particular related to a ditch alongside the driveway that was shown too deep. That was entirely a drafting error, which we have corrected in these plans and added some more detail to our detail. Another was he was asking that the entire length of the driveway be resurfaced with an apron shown at Fairgrounds Road. We have shown that now. Added some more detail on the infiltration basin as he requested, and I think his last comment was to provide a photometric plan as you guys had talked about last month as well, and that is included.
Okay, thank you. And is there also an updated or full lighting plan in here as well?
Yes.
That's the separate page, this one.
Oh, okay.
If you look in center at the top, there's the
Oh, got it, yeah.
foot candle depictions of the colored
Yep.
areas.
Thank you, Phil.
I had to struggle to find it a little bit myself.
Okay.
I figured I'd save everyone a little trouble.
Thank you. And just looking at various things here. I'm not reading all that quickly. Is there indication of where a sign will be on here?
Yeah, it's on the site plan.
Not seeing it right away.
Beginning. Right here.
There is a sign shown near the intersection of Fairgrounds Road and the driveway. I believe there's also a building mounted sign.
Got it. I see it. Yes, thank you.
If you'd like, if folks, if it's, I know it's really small, I can pull up on the TV screen. That would mean we wouldn't be able to see Chris, but if we wanted to see the photometrics up on the screen, I could pull that up, if it's too small to
I
see.
think
No,
that would
I
be
think
good,
it-
especially since the audience would probably like to see it.
Yeah, it's pretty tight. I don't know if I get much better, but generally, Chris could probably speak to it a little more, but it really does look like they've concentrated the lighting really around the site. It doesn't appear that there's much, if any, at the property line. Even where the sign is, it would appear. So that certainly speaks to less of an impact on the abutting properties. But perhaps, I don't know, Chris, if you had any comments on that or wanted to
Yeah.
speak to that?
Yes?
Comment there, if you want me to speak.
Yeah, go ahead. Come on up.
Yeah, I want to make sure that the audience can hear. So with the light study, the blue is the wide range, showing the high level light. We spoke with the landscape architecture to really preserve what the community and the board mentioned last time about not having overly powerful light. So what we were proposing was having almost a lighter light going on at the nighttime and installing the motion sensors to avoid unnecessary lighting at night hours. So what we did when we first did it, the light study did drag down a little much. So we moved the posts to illuminate the driveway in backwards so that it does not impede on our two neighbors on that driveway there. Going again as well based on the recommendations of the motion sensor, not only does it help us with power and electricity, but also it helps keep the property a lot dimmer. So it'll be a lot more dimmer, almost might not be describing it as scientific, but softer lighting. And that comes on, and then when it does actually motion detects it, it does have a brighter lighting for security, but those do have a timer that goes on and off as the nighttime comes and light sensors.
I presume what's being depicted here is the higher intensity.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So the higher intensity would be within the red, the lower intensity within the blue, and then outside that it drops off to nothing.
Obviously, when does the motion sensor turn the lights off when there's no motion, or does it go to a lower intensity?
Off on the buildings, if
Okay.
I'm correct, Chris. I believe the light study goes in. The motion on the buildings, they will be off, and it'll only be by rows. So if someone goes on the eastward row, it'll only turn that one on.
Okay.
And as if someone's doing laps around, yeah, it'll turn them all on. But it's on based on the rows going north to south.
Okay, thank you.
So, and you are going to go with the 8-foot fence?
Oh, we're gonna go with a 6-foot fence.
Oh, the 6-foot fence, okay.
Yes, sir. And there was another question about the privacy slats.
Yeah, oh, a
Um,
6-foot fence, yeah.
That was another comment at the last meeting. We investigated it, and I talked to other self-storage owners, and the cost to maintain, and it alleviates the security of the main reason of having the fence. We ultimately decided that the privacy slats, based on the community comment, would not be ideal fit for us. So we really took that consideration, but the 6-foot fence and the lighting is what we really try to make sure to preserve that.
Okay.
So you're saying that the security of, so people can see through?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I can see that, but I mean, no pun intended, but I feel like that's putting the burden on the abutters to be policing the property. I mean, if we're trying to see through it, right, I guess, yeah. I mean,
I think it, my perspective is it just keeps the honest people honest. You know, if you're shielded from
Yeah.
view, you're more likely to try and get away with something that you wouldn't if you perceive that anyone could see you. You know, I think from a site owner's
Yeah. No, I
perspective,
get
I
it,
could see
get
the
it, yeah.
advantage. of-
Specifically for the security cameras, if someone's coming in or out or climbing a fence, it's for that reason. But I understand your
Yeah.
concerns, miss.
Gotcha.
I know what you mean. And you know, I'm with the depiction of the light intensity, and the fact that these are full cutoff, downcast fixtures. I think the potential for off-site light pollution is pretty low. You know, it doesn't appear that there's going to be much even going past the tree line. It seems like the lighting design is well thought out, in my opinion.
What about operating hours?
Yes, so the operating hours, the office will be open to take, what was I gonna say? Potential renters to go in for office, to be able to use the space from 8:30 to 4:30 is when the office will be open. However, access to the storage units itself will be 24/7. So it'll be open at all times, but the office itself, will only be open during that 8:30 to 4:30 timeframe.
Are the hours depicted on the plan anywhere?
Um,
Chris, maybe? Chris, are the hours noted on the plan anywhere? Hours of operation?
I'm not sure that the hours of operation are noted anywhere in the plan. I can take a look through them and see, but I don't remember putting them out.
You'd know if they were.
I don't think it's necessarily critical because because it is open 24 hours a day. I feel like it can't be more open than that.
Right.
And
You could make some money if you figured out how to do it, though.
yeah. 26 hours a day, days a week. So yeah, I feel like the office hours are a little less, I think that's less of what the concern is anyway. So I think I would more likely ask them to put it on the plans if it was a limited access type of thing.
Mhm. Okay. Do we have any other questions from the board at this point? I mean, there are some administrative things to take care of that could potentially be conditions of approval when we get there.
I noticed on the staff recommendations on the staff report regarding Hutchins Road, the question is, impact any party that currently has a right to use this road? Is everybody still gonna be able to use the road that's available to? Is the right-of-way going away? Or how is that?
Yes, the right-of-way will be, nothing's changing on there. It will be the same access point for both of their lots there. They will have access from there.
And that will be, there'll be something documented for that, I'm
Yes.
assuming. Okay, just so that future, 20 years from now, when somebody's trying to buy or sell, there's no question.
I think part of the property line adjustment we did last time, I think included an easement, I think.
Yes, I
I
believe
recall
so. It
correctly.
was Easement on the two abutting properties on that driveway
Yeah.
is a condition on there.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was on this recommendation.
And so we'll have to get permitting for water and sewer.
Yes, so
Okay.
petition for the water and sewer, and we're still the AOT. They accepted the permit application. I got excited that they accepted it in general. I read too quickly, but they are reviewing that currently.
Okay. Good.
You're gonna do a public hearing?
I am, yeah.
Okay, good.
I was just thinking about that, if we didn't have any more questions.
I don't.
So we're good?
Yeah.
Okay. So it is currently 6:51, and I will open a public hearing. So if any members of the public would like to come up and speak, use our non-existent podium over there, and
Public comment can be for, against, or
Yes.
questions.
Questions.
Any of the above.
and please identify yourself.
Chris Woods, 157 Fairgrounds. I'm pleased to hear that there is the motion detector. That's good. I guess I still have a little bit of a concern about the 24-hour access. And I'm not complaining, but I just want to point this out. If it's contractor-oriented storage, I can envision contractors coming in 4 o'clock in the morning, loading vehicles, da-da-da-da-da. So, just going to point that out.
Yeah.
Secondly, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the current terrain of the property. Once again, just pointing this out, it is something of a bowl in there. And if you look at your as-built, they're raising this up, probably not surprisingly, on a plateau. And I'm kind of curious, like, in the alteration of terrain, how far outside of this actual construction area are you having to go to move fill to make that happen? So,
If the engineer would like to address
that's an
that?
engineering question there. Are you bringing in material to make that happen? I think that covers it.
Thank you.
That sounds like a good question for me. Yes, we are planning to raise that pad to make it nice and level. We haven't shown it coming from on site. The intention, I think, would be that the material would be brought in, but certainly that's something that we could look at revising, maybe taking it from a little farther to the north there.
Okay. Other questions or comments from members of the public? I was asking if there are other questions or comments from members of the public. Okay. Just in case, I'll leave the public hearing open for a bit. So, on the board, we'll have to start considering whether we feel this application is ready for an approval, and what the findings of fact would be if so, and also potential conditions we'll have to get to eventually, which I believe there might be a handful.
John, first meeting, were there other concerns that they brought forward?
I think they were similar to what Chris just echoed about 24 hours lighting, contractors and noise at early hours in the morning. And am I missing anything? I think that was it.
There was some discussion about
Drainage, actually.
proposed meeting space in one of the buildings too, that might provide like a conference room for tenants to utilize. I mean, have there been any changes regarding that?
So there's been no changes. There's a conference room meeting area, but that would only be allowed to be used from that 8:30 to 4:30 range for those contractors.
That helps to clarify that, thank you.
Yeah, Mike?
There was one question that I brought up about whether there would be, the contractors would use the space for construction and working there, and I think you answered it, that there would not be contractors working and running business out of the space. It's just strictly storage. But
Correct.
You can answer it again.
Yeah, so to answer that question, it is for storage, and to protect the land, honestly, from environmental waste, oils and spills, we will have a very conditional lease of what is allowed to be stored in there. And in regards to power and everything else inside of it, this is contractor storage, not to actually be running a business out of. If they'd like to take a meeting, that office space is available as a supplementary, but this is for storage, not for utilization of the space
Not for manufacturing or business
Correct.
operations.
Correct, sir.
No, I think along somewhat similar lines, there were also questions last time about trash, and the only trash you're going to have is a small receptacle in the actual office space, if I understand, and no actual outside dumpster or other larger trash.
Yeah, so we have space carved out for trash bins utilized for the office space to be hauled away.
Okay.
In regards to trash in and out, we will make a mandatory rule that you have to dispose of your own trash, not to have it in there.
Got it. Thank you. If I can start us off a bit, I find that this is a permitted use within the agricultural zone.
So we close the public hearing.
I have not actually. I left it open for a moment just in case.
I guess we do have a public hearing in the chat, or
Oh.
a public question, and it says,
Yes.
will the units have power provided?
I believe the answer last time was no, right?
Correct. No power inside of the buildings,
Okay.
like light switches.
Oh, yeah. No accessible power. You'll power the lights, of course. Which also makes it harder to run one's power tools and stuff if one had the
Although if
Yes.
if somebody
Temptation.
does choose to run a power tool, it means they're probably going to fire up a generator, which will be noisy.
I have a question.
And then, but then there could be a complaint to the, yeah, since it's not allowed.
Are
Yes,
any of the
Neil.
units heated?
No, sir. No units are heated.
Well, I'll make a last call for any other public comments or questions.
Joseph, can you double check and make sure there's nobody online with more questions?
Nothing else in the chat. We do have a few people on Zoom who could unmute themselves, I suppose, at this point if they want
So,
to.
If anyone online would like to speak, please unmute yourself and do so. Okay. Well, it is 6:58, and I will close the public hearing. So should we just start going through the various requirements that we need to meet and see findings of fact and make sure we meet everything?
I think we should. I would offer that this is a commercial use within the agricultural zone, which is in compliance with our current zoning ordinance.
The development seems to meet all dimensional requirements for setbacks and lot size. And, yeah.
So it's permitted use, it meets the dimensional requirements.
I would note that there's an alteration of terrain permit that is pending approval with New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services.
And that will, the receipt of that approval will likely be a condition?
Yep.
Of approval?
The town engineer has reviewed the application, provided feedback, and the applicant has addressed all the issues raised by the engineer.
It appears fire, police, and building departments have, there are no issues, they're okay with it.
Sue? Hey, Sue?
Yeah?
Grab the mic. Next time.
Oh, sure.
The site is suitable for the use.
I don't disagree that this is an appropriate use of the site, although I think potential residential development would also be an appropriate use, but it sounds like the applicant may be considering that in the future.
So is the sign, I'm just trying to
I had
all my
questions.
signage regulations and whether or not it's within its, I mean, it's very close to the driveway, I guess, although it's an easement also for a public access to two properties, and it doesn't have enough space.
Oh,
Is the easement, though, is it,
it's not within the road right of way, though. It's not within the public road right of way. It may be within the driveway access right of way. But that's private property.
Yeah. I'm just kind of going through this in my head, yeah. I'm trying to,
Yeah.
Rebecca, did you have thought?
Just, do you remember offhand what our sign minimum or maximum size is for freestanding?
Yep, so they are proposing a 80 square feet aggregate display area, at least based on the initial review, which is used in combination with 30 square feet of wall signage on the office. So when you have a 200 square feet is the permitted maximum, so that for a freestanding sign, and then 2 square feet per linear foot of building side is the permitted amount for a wall sign. And so that would allow 72 square feet where 30 are proposed, and allow 200 square feet for the freestanding where 80 are proposed. So they are within
Thank
them.
you. So the proposed signage does meet
Our dimensional requirements for the sign. I'm still kind of curious, Joseph, if you can help clarify, when a sign is,
you're worried about the location?
I'm thinking about the location. It's next to a road, which is actually a private way, but it has an easement for other travelers, and I just want to double check to make sure that, trying to think
it's-
about these various overlapping factors in my head right now.
Right, but it is the applicant's ownership.
It
Of
is,
that.
it is.
So it's not an encumbrance upon himself, it's
And it
only,
wouldn't be subject to setbacks or anything, or
I don't
setback
believe,
from the
from what, though?
road?
From the road, from the public road.
but it is depicted to be outside
Yeah.
of the public
Yeah.
road right
And
away.
the easement, we don't necessarily know whether the easement permits a sign or not, I suppose, within the terms of that easement. That would be something I suppose the applicant could probably speak to, but there are the setback requirements for signage, which are in the agricultural district. That is going to be just checking, 20 feet off the front side and rear yard in the ag district for a freestanding sign.
Hmm.
I guess I'm just wondering how we measure that on a narrow strip of land that's being used for a right-of-way.
I agree. It does,
I'm not quite sure how to answer that
well,
question.
there is a scale. If you look at sheet C2.01, it appears that it's approximately 20 feet from the edge of the right-of-way.
Okay. Thank you, Phil.
And that's the closest dimension. Based on,
20 feet from the edge of right-of-way of fairgrounds.
and from the abutting property. It appears to be close. I don't have a scale, and it's hard to scale anything at that.
Yes. Please, come on up.
So the way the easement lays in now, if mind if I grab this so I can visually see it too? The way the road turns, the abutting property on the right, it actually, it's almost shared on his property. So the sign location on the left, the way we measured out was 20 feet from Fairgrounds Road, and it was more like 15 feet, 12 to 15 feet from the left abutting property. And we wanted to make sure we had a minimum 25 to 30 feet of the easement driveway, so we had plenty of room for two-way traffic and for large fire trucks and anyone else that needs to be able to go in there. If that helps answer your question.
Yeah, I would worry about if moving it any further from the abutting property line would put it more in the right of way, and then you'd be decreasing the turning radius for
You mean
access.
in the road?
No, I mean,
In
on the subject property access. Like, moving it 20 feet into the right of way that way would create a danger in the turning radius. He mentioned it might only be 12 to 15 feet from this property
I think,
line.
I mean, it has to meet whatever dimensional requirements
Right.
we have.
I guess the issue is, so, I mean, are we counting a setback from this property line here? Because this, right, peninsula of land here, for lack of a better term, is basically the property, and we have to have the setback measured off that property line.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a property line. You're correct, that between this property.
And what did you say the minimum setback there was?
So it's
In the ag zone?
In the ag zone, minimum setback, freestanding side, front side and rear are all 20 feet.
Front, side, and rear.
Mm-hmm. Other than a directional sign, which is permitted one near each ingress egress, but the area of that may not exceed 6 square feet.
So-
Can we ask the engineer who's on
Yeah.
Zoom to just give us an idea of how far it is from the property line?
Did you hear that?
Go ahead.
We're wondering about the sign and how far it is from the property line in terms of setbacks and meeting our requirements for signage.
Sure. I believe I drew it in 20 feet from the side, the abutting property to the side, and 20 feet from the right of way. So it is supposed to be compliant with the setback.
John's Road.
And from the abutting.
And from the abutting
And from the
property.
abutting property. I just want to make, because
Okay.
we're throwing around right-of-way quite a bit, but there's really an easement for access that
Yeah.
was part of the subdivision, application, right? So,
So it looks like there's a pretty tight margin there, but you made it basically, and you're within outside of the 20 feet. Okay. Thank you. All right.
I believe,
So we can have a finding of fact that
This
the
is showing
sign is
setbacks.
properly located within
yeah,
or outside of the setbacks.
right.
I think we determined last time, right, that we had ample room for traffic flow of large vehicles. We discussed this last time, I believe, yes? Anyone wants to clarify for me?
I think we didn't ask for a traffic study. It seemed like, it seemed unnecessary.
No, yeah. I wasn't thinking traffic flow from the streets, but within the property. I think we're
I do recall that the engineer had
addressed that.
discussed some of the anticipated ingress and egress issues, and that they had accommodated them in
That was-
their layout of roadways and parking.
That's my recollection as well.
So for conditions of approval, do we have anything other than
Conditions of
DOT?
approval, we have some approvals we're waiting for, which is, so we're still waiting for water and sewer, is that correct? And AOT we're waiting for, and
Do we need to list the specific approvals, or can we say that it's conditional upon
All the
necessary-
official, yeah, exactly.
all necessary
Thank you.
permits?
We can say that.
Are you making a motion, Phil?
Unless you want to.
I think we're trying to figure out some of the conditions of approval before we
Jump into it.
I think, yeah, we think it sounds like.
jump into it.
it
It
sounds
sounds
like
like what
we
we're
need-
doing? Like potentially a development agreement? So, and you're willing to enter into a development agreement with the town?
Yes,
I think there, it sounds like maybe some explanation is needed.
yes, please, I would.
That there will be money put in escrow to cover costs and potential costs and such.
Yes, sir.
For engineer review,
For-
essentially.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
To review the different
The,
stages.
the
of
town's
construction.
engineer would be retained just to ensure that what's being built is what you had proposed, and that when it's done, any remaining escrows will be returned to you.
Yes, sir, we agree with that.
Thank you.
Thank you for the explanation.
Yeah.
Sorry for my rather vague explanation. Let's see. Are we interested in a site reclamation bond
Did we do one for
for the other
the
storage?
unit? I don't think we
I
did.
don't think we did.
Given what's there and what they're proposing, I don't think that a site reclamation bond is necessary.
Okay.
Do we need to have as an the recording of the boundary line adjustment?
So the boundary line adjustment and its conditions need to be met.
Yeah, the
Um,
boundary line adjustment needs to get recorded and its conditions need to be.
Yes. Are we keeping track of all those conditions?
I mean, I think it's just 3
Okay. So boundary line adjustment,
permits.
development agreement, and permits. Okay.
I would make a motion that given the findings of fact, I would move that we approve the Slater Holdings application for Combs Self-Storage on Fairgrounds Road with the conditions that all appropriate permits be obtained, that the boundary line adjustment that affects this parcel be recorded, and that all the conditions of approval be met, and that Plymouth Village Water and Sewer approval be obtained to serve the property.
Sorry, did you say the development agreement?
Oh, and, yeah, and that the one additional condition of approval is that the applicant enter into a development agreement with the town and provide funds in escrow to allow for the construction inspection by the town's engineer.
Second.
Just to clarify, so we have a motion and a second. So the conditions were the development agreement, the permitting, and the
Recording of the subdivision.
recording of the subdivision. Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion?
I don't know, Chris looks pretty nervous.
All right, so we have a motion and a second for conditional approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. The application is approved. Congratulations, or conditionally approved, I should say. Congratulations. And thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. All right. I'm gonna clear up some paperwork here.
Boundary line
My
adjustment,
stack got a
don't we?
little bit smaller. Excuse me. So up next, we have a boundary line adjustment on 18 Thurlow Street. So application for a boundary line adjustment to adjust a common boundary line between parcel 221-050, 30 Thurlow Street, and 221-051, 18 Thurlow Street. Properties are owned by Douglas J. Smith Jr. and Sharon Cashin Smith and Roger and Evan Nagorka Ellsworth. Parcel 221-050 would decrease to 0.87 acres, and parcel 221-051 would increase to 16.25 acres in exchange of 3/4 of an acre. And planning board, we should have staff report and some maps and photos as well as the application. Would the applicant like to address the board? Good evening.
Kevin French for the applicants. Have larger plans if anybody wants them.
Thank you.
Okay, here.
So basically, the area, the large dashed area was a boundary line adjustment that was done in 1997. And at this point in time, they'd like to just basically bring that line back. This runs along the top of a hill. And it's wooded on both sides, and they just wanted to bring it back there. That created left a wooded area of buffer for both lots. And it's more fields out here that went more naturally with the original original building. I'm sure most of you know the house running lot is Keniston, big Keniston house on the hill. So basically, at this time, all they're looking to do is just kind of readjust that line.
So, looks pretty straightforward in many ways.
So Kevin, this lot here is getting bigger to include.
Well, this lot here, this triangular piece, was what they added to this in 1997, off of the big Keniston parcel. Now they want to kind of shrink that back to just to the top of the hill.
Oh, okay.
Any further questions from the board?
Well, I think if we're talking about application completeness, we just need to review the waivers that have been requested.
We
by the
do,
applicant.
and there's quite a few. So let's go through them. We have location of proposed driveways, and the applicant requests a waiver from this checklist item because it's not applicable to the boundary line adjustment. Soil types as identified by soil series, not applicable to boundary line adjustment. Flood hazard area as indicated on the National Flood Insurance Plans, similar. Topographic contours at 5-foot intervals. Year-round water courses, the purpose and acreage of any easement, land reserved, etc. Final locations of all proposed improvements, and cross-sections, profiles, and grades of streets. And should I continue to read all these?
I can read them.
Okay.
I mean,
For the application under review, which looks pretty straightforward, this seems reasonable to me.
I think all of these are pretty consistent with a boundary line adjustment, not a major subdivision where these would be important.
This is ag zone?
A single family.
Oh, single family, okay. Thank you. Yeah, there we go.
Thank you for doing the shorter version, Rebecca. So as a reminder, everyone, our first question is whether to accept the application as complete. So this is also just a bit of public information for everyone. This is a new application, and unlike our previous application, which was a continuation, and the first thing we need to do is determine whether the application is complete before we move on to the question of whether or not to approve the application.
I'll make a motion that we accept the application as complete.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to accept the application as complete. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so the application is accepted as complete. So we move on to looking at approval and what that would require, and having a public hearing in a couple of moments, probably. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Nope.
No? Okay. It is currently 7:21, and I will open a public hearing. If anyone would like to, members of the public would like to speak to this application, for or against, ask questions, please come up to our makeshift podium and identify yourself. Anybody on Zoom?
We do have a few folks on Zoom.
If anyone on Zoom would like to make a comment or ask a question, please mute yourself and do so. Okay. Going once. Twice. Okay. So it is 7:22. I will close the public hearing. Looking at this application and dimensional requirements and all other requirements for a boundary line adjustment, if we could start looking at findings of fact, perhaps.
Yeah, I suppose it's not included on this particular staff report, but it did get the police, fire, water and sewer review, and there were no issues raised or concerns from any of those department heads.
Thank you,
Plymouth
Joseph.
Village Water and Sewer just observed that it has, the parcels have access to water and sewer, but that was the only comment that was raised in that review.
So that sounds like a finding of fact.
Yes.
So it meets the dimensional requirements, public sewer is available.
For the single-family residential.
I don't think there's a whole lot else.
There's not a whole lot of findings of fact for a boundary line adjustment.
Can I ask a question?
You may.
The question of the applicant, have the bounds been set?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I was originally concerned about the minimum lot size, but it's certainly meets the, as we said, it meets the dimensional requirements.
I don't even think we need any conditions on this, so
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve this application.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve this boundary line adjustment. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. We are approved. Congratulations.
Joseph, do you want to
And
save these for display?
You know the routine about Mylars and all?
Got the Mylar.
Perfect.
You're welcome to leave those if you want us to sign them.
Yeah.
No edits required, right?
What's that?
What it's required,
I
we
don't-
have the
no,
Mylar.
It looks,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you, have a good night.
All right.
All right. This down here. So up next, we have a public hearing for the, oh,
Appreciate
actually, I should, Ken, I'll wait for you to, sorry, getting ahead of myself. All right. Up next, we have a public hearing for the 2024 to 2030 Plymouth Capital Improvements Program. So we had a little look at this at our last meeting, and we're gonna have a public hearing this evening to see whether or not to, I guess, approve,
Approve.
approve,
Adopt and approve.
adopt and approve the CIP. Sue, would you like to say anything to bring us up to date? I know we had a discussion of this last time. Maybe say a few words for those in the audience who, or I should say in the public, who may not be, maybe unfamiliar.
No, nothing, we really haven't met, nothing has changed since we did that. It's a 6-year plan of the different departments. They put in their requests for any big expenditures that they may need, that we just put it over time. I don't, do we have that, Joseph, here, the?
Yep, should be in the packets
Oh, it's on
that
the
folks
screen.
have, and it's also up on the screen here. It should be the last thing in your packet as well, a printed copy of this.
Yeah.
Do you have anything, Phil, that you want to add to it?
I mean, the capital improvement plan is just, it's a tool for the select board and budget committee to be able to help equalize the town's tax rate, even though, it's a snapshot of our anticipated expenditures for the next 6 years. There may be years where we anticipate spending more than other years, and this allows us to take years that might have lower levels of expenditure and create capital reserves so that in the years where we have higher levels of expenditure, we don't see large fluctuations in the impact to the town's tax rate. So it's really meant to kind of levelize and take the sharp points off of the spending curve that you would see otherwise. So.
And it's under the authority of the planning board, and although it becomes a tool, as you mentioned, for the select board and budget committee to draw up a budget and eventually take it to town meeting.
And plan, the items included are typically, single, non-recurring capital items that have, minimum price. We don't put everything on there. It's really
Large budget impact.
just the big things.
Yeah.
And it does work with the master plan. The master plan is designed for years out, and so you try to take your capital improvement program and make that fit into the master plan as well.
And so it's not really our role on the planning board to kind of nitpick our way through every last detail, just to make sure it looks like it's on the right track and something we're willing to endorse. And,
I would like to thank Sue for her time in spearheading the CAP committee this year.
it's a lot of work, and thank you.
Can be.
You're welcome, and last year was really a banner year, because it had not been doing anything for several years. So they pulled a lot of this together to get it back on track to work along with that.
And obviously, the town staff was very instrumental in all the department heads that have to, this does put a burden on department heads to kind of look out into the future and anticipate what we're going to need for fire trucks, plows, transfer station equipment. Everybody should be looking out into the future and trying to figure out, how long the equipment we have is going to last and what we're going to need to replace. So it's a little bit of a lift for everyone involved, but it does provide the town with a good forecast for anticipated large expenditures, at least. So
All right. So, are there any comments or questions?
Are we doing a public hearing?
Yes. Just wanted to see if we had any. Okay. So, not much else from the board. It is currently 7:30, and I will open the public hearing. If anyone in the public or on Zoom, our digital members of the public, have anything to add or question, please come up and address the board. Identify yourself, please.
This is a lot of work. Appreciate everybody's hard work on this. Just one quick question. Grace Garvey, taxpayer, Texas Hill Road. So there's a couple places where there's 2003 items on here. Would those not be in the budget for 2023, 24? So page, like I said, not on page 2. There's a number of places where it says 23. There's one place where it says actually 2006. It was just really more of a question than anything. There's a number of places on page 3 also that say 2023. Are those just,
They may be things that were approved last year. I don't, do you remember, Joseph? If they're in this year's budget?
I'm not even seeing what we're talking about here.
so, I mean, I'll just give you one example. So under Pease Library, on the left corner,
What page?
page
sorry.
2.
Okay, thank you.
On the left column, under the library, it says 2018, upstairs library carpeting, and then under department recommended replacement, it says 2023. That's just one example. And then if you zoom down to highway department, the third from the bottom says 2006. I'm thinking maybe they're just typos or something, but just curious.
So I
Yeah,
guess,
just find my copy.
Sue, is that maybe the last year it was done?
so what is it specifically that you're looking, give me, what, so for instance, the highway department, where's the 2006?
Third
Okay,
line
so-
from the
Third
bottom.
from the bottom. I know, I
Okay,
need,
so that was a department, let's see, at the top, what does the top heading?
I'm wondering if that was supposed to be 2026.
Department recommended replacement date. So,
Or is this just telling us that it's way overdue?
yeah, I think that's probably when
Well,
they started
It's
putting
a,
it
it's
in
a,
there.
it's a 2015 model year tool, but yeah, it looks like a typo
It
to
could
me.
be. I'll make a note of that, though. and
yeah, I
will
just started looking, I
definitely-
was like,
No, thank you for that.
I would
I'll
guess
take
that
note,
was
find out.
intended to be 2026, which is the year that it was, that expenditure is put in for 2026. I'm on page 2, third line from the bottom, it's the Billy Goat leaf loader.
just
Shows
jumped
an
out at me.
anticipated replacement date of 2006, but the expenditure is planned in 2026.
well overdue.
Yep. Imagine it is.
And then,
And the Peace Public Library, where was that one, so I can?
so if you go to the P's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Parking lot
6, 7
meters.
down, upstairs library carpeting.
Okay,
And there's a bunch of those 2023, I don't know if maybe they came off because they're now in the budget for 23, 24 perhaps?
It might be that those, yeah, like the library carpeting might have been done this year, and we left it in to show that it was in the plan last year, and it was incorporated into this year's spending.
Yeah, this plan does include all of the capital items. In that first column before the yellow column does
Right.
include the capital items replaced in the year prior to this coming year, so
Right.
the
Okay.
previous year. That might explain
That's all I
some
have.
of them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
thank you.
I mean, it is nice to see that, you know, like the total expenditure for the budget year we're in this year is in line with what we're planning for the next several years.
Are there any further public comments, or questions? Okay. It is 7:35, and I will close the public hearing. Are we ready to adopt, or any further discussion from the board?
I would make a motion that we adopt and approve the CIP as presented, making exceptions for minor typos as pointed out.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Clear enough?
Any further discussion? All right, so we have a motion and a second to adopt and approve the CIP. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so the CIP is adopted and approved. Thank you all. Thank you, Sue. And thank you, Phil, for all your work last year.
I didn't do much this year. Thank you, Sue. And thank you, Joseph.
Okay, up next, informational and pre-application reviews. We have a Class 6 road building permit review and comment on parcel 227008 on Pike Hill Road. So in accordance with RSA 674-41, the planning board has been asked to review and comment on a proposed building permit on Pike Hill Road, the Class 6 road in the town of Plymouth. Proposal is for a building permit in accordance with section 403.3, temporary use recreational vehicle. And just as a reminder to everyone, and I believe this was in the packet that got sent around, the planning board, this is a building permit, and on a Class 6 road, the planning board has to see this building permit and endorse and or comment on it before sending it off to the select board for approval. There are also issues of the waiving of responsibility, which we can get to in a moment or two.
That's not for us, though.
That's not for us, that's for the applicant.
And it says that we just need to review and comment.
Yeah,
We did this just a couple months ago, didn't we?
we did, yeah.
Did we? I missed it.
It's on Hunt Road.
Or maybe half a year ago, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
Is the applicant?
Can I ask a question?
Oh,
Never mind, let me find it on the,
okay. Is the applicant present? To comment on,
I believe he is on Zoom.
okay?
Joseph, can you tell me?
Yes, how you doing? Can you hear me? This is Jeff.
Yes, we can hear you.
How you doing today?
Would you like to say a few words just to introduce yourself and this application?
Yeah, I just purchased the land. I was looking to just put a like a fifth wheel or a small camper on it to be able to use for recreational use only. So nothing of substance besides that.
Okay, and you understand all the precautions about liability and such on a Class 6 road?
Yes.
And paperwork eventually and go before the select board? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I'm assuming access is through Hebron?
Pike Hill Road goes through.
Yeah, I am aware of that.
Yeah,
I'm assuming access is through Hebron?
Yeah, it's not, I'm not sure. I would direct that one to the applicant. So you can, as you said, it spans from Hebron all the way through to Plymouth, and I believe the Hebron side is a little more developed. But I'm not sure what.
I mean, I'm asking, so I'm assuming that, but, and also Joseph, in the,
Yeah.
in the planner report, it
Bulldozer to get there from
says there's a
Plymouth.
small section in Bridgewater? Is that I'm assuming that's a,
Probably meant Hebron.
okay.
Yep, it connects to Old Hebron Road. It comes from Mayhew Turnpike in Hebron before entering Plymouth and connecting. Yeah, so it would be the Hebron portion that has a small maintained section, and then there is a singular residence on that very edge town boundary that also went through this same
interesting.
process probably 20 or so years ago, and filed a waiver and whatnot for a small camp, I believe, right across the town line, accessed, I believe, from the Hebron side. So that's the only other structure or development that I'm aware of on this particular stretch of road
In the town of
in
Plymouth.
Plymouth.
On the Plymouth side of things, it's gated, I believe. I mean, you can still access it. But
I was going to
it
say,
is
you
gated.
cannot restrict access to
Yeah.
a Class 6 road unless it's closed by a select board by gates and bars, and that one is not.
I will say there is a gate.
Mm-hmm.
Makes a good show.
Yeah.
Any comments from the board? Anything we'd like to forward on to the select board?
I guess my only question is there any proposal to build sewage treatment or a well on the parcel?
I would also direct that one to the applicant, not indicated not
In the building
indicated
permit?
either way in the permit submittal.
So, Jeff, is it?
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Mr. Reel, are you planning to put in water or sewer, or a well or septic on the parcel?
No, not right now, no.
Okay.
I think just really just put a camper on there.
All right. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm just, I mean, assuming the owner accepts all the liability issues, it seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, there's nothing for us to approve or
Yeah.
do anything except make comment, and it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like we have any comment.
Particularly pointed comments, no.
I don't have any strong feelings one way or another, other than I hope the applicant enjoys the parcel.
I do note here that there have been some departmental comments, and the Water and Sewer District says there's no water and sewer service there.
I'm shocked.
That's valid.
The same could probably be said of any and all utilities. We can't make any representations about utility availability up there. Any electrical, cable, internet, telephone, water, sewer, etc.
Safety from police and others,
Correct.
it's very limited.
Correct. So that is another departmental comment that the
Yeah.
police chief did indicate that it
Possible delay in police services
Mhm.
due to it being a Class 6 road.
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, as long as all these things are understood by the applicant, it seems, I think, pretty straightforward. And we don't seem like we have any very pointed comments to send along.
Pointed or otherwise.
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, so we can pass along then
Yeah.
a comment to the select board saying that the planning board's had the opportunity to review and comment on this. And
Yep.
Say, good luck with your property.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So, up next, other business from members of the board and planning staff. Plymouth Energy Commission Solar Array Project, governmental use of land. Welcome back.
I'm Grace Garvey, again, Chair of the Plymouth Energy Commission. So originally, we wanted to come in front of the board tonight to just update you on our project. And actually, Ted Van Zant from Barrington, well, he's representing Barrington Power tonight. He's there with the group that we signed a contract on for building the array is here also. And then Joseph kind of nudged us and said, you know, you probably want to put a written statement together addressing RSA 674:54, the government use of land. So we put a written statement together for you on that. And we also gave you a plan. And that plan might change a little bit. So on the north side of where the array is proposed is another section of open field. And right now PSU has an experimental project up there, so we're trying to keep access open. So the plan that you have in front of you might shift a little bit to give a little better access on the eastern side of the array. And if you have any questions about that, we can talk about that a little bit.
So this is only within the open area. This is not, I was envisioning it being much larger. I see. Thank you.
They fit these things in quite efficiently these days. And then what else? Yeah, we gave you a schedule. So we're here to answer questions. We're working through the nuances of getting an interconnection application with the co-op, which is taking some time. We were hoping to be under construction by now.
A reminder to the board, a government use of land, you might know this already, but is exempt from our local zoning.
Mm-hmm.
Bless you.
So they can put up an 8-foot fence.
If they choose.
High rise. I have a question. So I read an article recently about an organization in Massachusetts that's doing some really creative pollinator type of plantings underneath the solar panels. I know this is open space already, but it would be great to see, and it takes some maintenance, and you know, it's not just toss some seeds out there and you're good, but it would be great to see something like that. I think that pairs really well with a solar array.
I've had some experience with trying to do one in my own yard, and it's like, really? Yeah, it takes a lot of maintenance. Yeah, we can talk about that for sure, I think.
It's really up to the town, because the town will own the area.
But we'd have to incorporate that up front. That's the most successful. But anyway, we can talk about that
Yeah,
later.
but if you're having to do a bunch of soil disturbance to get stuff on site, then you know, it's the time to do it.
Right.
Very little soil disturbance with what we're gonna do. Pounding posts into the ground. That's it.
Are you talking pounding or helical?
One or the other, but either one is, you know, they'll dig up and build
Right.
foundations with concrete. We just,
Right.
the fence posts and the foundations for the solar are gonna just be screwed in or pounded in.
Okay.
So maybe not an immediate thing if there's very little disturbance, but just something to think about long range is, yeah, native.
It's, yep, thank you. So once a year, it would be mowed, which would be in keeping with what you're suggesting, and probably mowed by, we're in conversation with Colin at the airport, because they mow already across the street, so there's a little bit of an opportunity maybe for the mower to just go across the street and do that little section.
Great.
So, any other questions?
Mike?
Mike?
So it's gonna be within this cleared area here? Is it gonna, this little area here? Is it gonna expand in trees?
No, it's in the front, here.
Oh, this little part here?
Correct.
Just the open
So
parcel.
So
no
the-
trees really cut or anything like that?
Not really, we were just talking about that earlier. Ted took a solar pathfinder, do you want to talk about that a little bit? Out there today, was it today?
Oh, yeah, I was out there yesterday, and I don't think you really need to cut any trees to be able to fit it in the way it is and still have very good production. If you wanted to cut some trees on either side, you would get maybe 5% more production, so that's really up to the town at some point.
Yeah, that's what made this site so optimum, really. Very little site disturbance, no wetland impact, very little permitting. We're in the process of working on a DOT driveway access permit right now with Horizons Engineering.
Neil?
I need to recuse myself on this.
Oh, okay.
I'm in a butter.
Okay.
No decision.
Ultimately, we're not really deciding anything. It's more informational anyway, but thank you.
Yeah, and I can clarify that too. So as a governmental use of land, it would not be subject to the, sorry, it would not be subject to the local certain conventional land use regulations, provided they meet the requirement of notifying the board, and which they have done and indicated their schedule here. The board does have the right under that to provide a non-binding written comments or an informational public hearing at the board's discretion within 30 days of this notice. So if the board were so inclined, you'd have a right to do that. And just, you know, anything that you decide to pass along would be informational in nature about the, you know, the usually applicable standards or anything like that.
Sorry, if this,
some background on that.
sorry, Joseph.
Rebecca?
Did we just talk about abutters?
Neil mentioned,
He's in a butter.
yeah.
Okay, that's where, any other, have you had conversations with abutting property owners? Just so, I mean, because that's what the site plan review process would do.
We have it not.
Okay, because there is, you know, there is a part, you know, just, I don't think it's necessarily going to make I mean, obviously it doesn't make much of a difference, but it's always good to be able to.
Your friendly neighbor. Yeah.
Fair enough. The only abutter is not, well, I mean, across the street, obviously the airport.
I'm just looking at lot 16 and 19. They're,
Yeah, fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
everything else is on the other side of that really neat wetland. So.
Right.
So how would this affect the planes landing, taking off?
So we have FAA approval. We got it last year, and it's good for, I think it was 15 months. So it's good through June of this year, of '24. And what they do is we give coordinates, outline what we're doing, and they go through an analysis of whether it will impact regular operations at an airport, and we've got clearance that it will not. And we got it at multiple levels.
And as far as the electricity being sent through, it's not going to affect any of the instruments on any of the planes? Just
It
It's
gets
yeah.
tied to the grid right at that location.
It's no different than the power wires that already go down the road.
okay.
Bill? Do you have a comment?
No, I'm good. I was just thinking.
I was thinking we also had the layout. Did we send that to the board?
There's so many pieces of paper. I see
Layout
it.
of the actual array.
This one here?
Yes, thank you. So that's the one that's might shift a little bit,
Yep.
because on the east side, we just have to provide access to that field, Mike, that you were pointing out, that long strip that runs north-south. There's a experiment. Within the yellow footprint,
Oh, yeah.
up in that field, there's an ongoing PSU experiment. Have you guys been up there? It's like this mirror experiment.
Oh, was that the
It's a
albedo?
donors class. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Hmm.
So we're just,
My only question is the co-op going to let you net meter, or are they giving you wholesale rates on that?
Net metering,
Really? Even though there's no load there?
yeah.
Okay, that's good. They're going to net meter it at their standard kind of interconnection rates?
Well, they have the export rate and
Yeah.
they have the net meter,
Yeah,
behind the meter. So
yeah. And then the export rates for commercial scale a little bit with size, right?
The airport gonna get direct power?
we're talking about that. They use so little power.
Yeah.
We just have to make sure that that is an appropriate interconnect. You want to talk about that at all, Ted?
Currently applied for just a brand new service that will not interconnect with the airport.
My only last concern isn't as much the site and conditions like that. It's still, my biggest concern is our rates are so high right now, I just can't imagine them continuing to go up. And I really can picture Northern Pass taking another stab at things. And if that happens, rates could drop. And,
They're not gonna drop.
I think we might be getting a little,
I know.
Yeah,
I
we're
know
not
it's
here
outside of
looking
what
for,
we look at, but it's,
Most of the states in New England are looking at doubling their electrical capacity in the next 10 or 15 years because
I think-
they're looking at so
so-
much electrification that,
Phil, Mike,
I know,
I think we're a little off,
we are.
take it in the hallway. Yeah,
Rates are not gonna go down.
good. Any other?
thank you.
Thanks for all your
I think
work
it's
on
great.
this.
Thank you
This
so
is-
much.
this is
Huge. Thanks for your support.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so up next, we have a discussion of the Fairgrounds Road overlay that we were talking about at our last meeting. I will also mention, before we get to that, which we can now refer to as fraud.
Oh, no. That's terrible.
Sorry.
Nobody's ever said it out loud.
I have now.
Where are we?
We also, I think we just got these earlier today, have draft amendments with the amended amendments with the language in there that we had discussed at our last work session. And so we're not going to discuss this evening, but this was sent around for your information earlier. So just have a look, and we'll have our public hearing at our December work session.
Yeah, and just one note on that one. Actually, there is one, so just came up today. So this was there was Amendment 7, the open space residential development amendment to remove it and move it to the subdivision regulations. There is one piece in that was not included in this version of these draft amendments, which essentially does the same thing as the as the footnote, but with Article 5 itself as well. And that's actually not spelled out here, but that was that was one of the items, one of the pieces of that amendment. But it is so that is the only thing that should be different for public hearing on these 7 compared to what's here, based on what we've received so far.
You're talking about the last page.
Yes, the Amendment 7, open space residential development. So that was just one that,
Okay. Well, it's a lot of work to keep track of a lot of moving pieces within a zoning ordinance. As you change one thing, you realize sets off a whole series of events. So
otherwise those-
yeah, go ahead, Joseph.
I was just saying, otherwise those 7 have been provided and are, Barrett Planning has written them up based on the discussion on the November 2nd meeting and what the board sent to hearing on December 7th. So I've also included the notice that was posted for that December 7th hearing, which describes the amendments as well. And of course, we'll be hitting newspapers, mailboxes, website very soon, definitely by next week. And then we'll allow the board to legally hold that hearing.
So, and at our last meeting, we discussed the Fairgrounds Road overlay fraud. Sorry. And we didn't have language for that yet, but we discussed all the things that we were expecting to see in that as best we could. And we decided to have a discussion at this meeting here before it shows up a public hearing to actually look at the language and so it's not a surprise at public hearing. And I know that Barrett Planning wanted to join us if they could. Are they available at all?
They are not online at this point,
Okay.
no.
So this is I'll just say a few words then. And Joseph, if you want to, I know you probably had a closer look than I did even. So this is the language of the Fairgrounds Road Residential Overlay District. And important to note here, I'll just actually read this section. Developments proceeding under this section 304.3 shall be governed solely by the provisions herein, and the standards or procedures of the underlying districts shall not apply. I'm not sure that was the right quote to read. Basically, you get to use one or the other, either the overlay or the underlying district regulations for your development. You don't get to mix and match within your development.
Say
If-
that again?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, so Judy mentioned this today when she passed this along. So it's the way that this overlay has been designed to work based on her recommendation is that with an overlay, it's an opt-in overlay on top of the existing district. So you can still develop under the restrictions of the ag zone, which would be the underlying district, or you can opt to use this and the dimensional requirements and uses that are referenced in this. So if you're in the ag zone, you can do your permitting under the ag zone, or you can opt to do it under the Fairgrounds Road Residential Overlay District and then develop accordingly with the lot sizes and uses outlined in here. So it's an overlay zone that is an opt-in on top of an underlying zoning district. It does not replace the underlying.
So I think where this becomes clearest, I think there might be some more complicated potentials, but if you're doing a non-residential development, you still need to follow all the dimensional requirements of the ag zone. If you're doing a residential development, you can. Yeah. So basically,
Basically going to have a use that's not allowable in the single-family zone, and then have like 4 apartments upstairs.
So that only under the terms of that. So if you could do that today under ag zoning,
Yeah.
you could still do it
Right.
under this zoning district, or you could opt to use specifically the uses in this district which would be specifically the uses that were pulled from the single-family residential district at that density. So you could do single-family residential density and uses, or you could do ag.
Okay, so
density
you
and
just, you
uses.
couldn't basically, I mean, essentially, it's just not gonna let you do the more dense development that we're allowing in this overlay zone
for other uses.
paired with other uses, okay.
Or you could on separate parcels, for
Right.
example. It would just be this, if one permitting application comes in under fairgrounds, it would be permitted under the requirements of fairgrounds as opposed to ag, but if you were to do something under ag, it would be the same as it is.
And besides making sense in terms of zoning, it also is administratively easier because you simply choose one or the other in terms of how you're applying it.
I mean, it's essentially if you want to build a more dense residential development, you're going with the overlay.
Yes, exactly.
This to me seems more of an administrative thing, and which is something for us to keep in mind when we're reviewing applications in this zone, but.
So there is a question about the two-family dwelling, but before we get there, I actually had a question about the language here. Under G, any signs erected in the fraud, sorry, shall comply with the requirements for signs in the SFR zone under section 408. So here's my question. In terms of language and how we word this, and perhaps the town attorney can actually clarify this. Any sign erected within this overlay shall comply with the requirements of the SFR zone. Now, is it any sign erected in the overlay, the fraud, that are governed by the overlay? Because you can be within the overlay but not governed by the overlay, in which presumably the other regulation. I'm just wondering if this wording is.
I mean, I think the applicability clause covers that. So if we're talking signs.
I guess so. I just wonder if it needs to be reiterated there, but perhaps it doesn't.
Yes,
I mean, it's the same in all the other sections. It's pretty much saying,
Yeah.
that basically any of these things have to apply.
I guess since the applicability is there, then I guess that's implied. Then I guess. Thank you.
Be either the signage requirements that apply to single-family
Yeah.
residential or ag, depending on which district you're using for a particular project.
And I suppose, yeah, okay. Joseph, I know there was some question about the two-family dwellings.
Yep.
And I know you were far more involved in that conversation than I was. If you want to explain some of that.
Sure, so I will try my best. I spoke to Judy. Judy reached out about this, and we did speak about it when we first got this language this afternoon. So the language as it stands says that two-family dwelling shall be allowed with a special exception. It should be noted, whoops, we do have Alexis here. Maybe Alexis can speak to it even better than I can. But so the big question at hand, the notice for the hearing on this district did not specify. It said single-family attached and detached and single-family residential zone dimensional and other requirements and the area of the district and the map and things. So it didn't specifically say in that notice allow two-family as a special exception. The discussion on the second was allow the uses of the single-family residential zone. So based on earlier information and the information that was used to prepare these notices, which had to, because of the timelines, had to be finalized before we got this language for the district itself. That was not included. So I guess the question that Judy has asked, if the board would think about sort of two pieces. Would the board like to include two-family dwellings as a special exception use in the Fairgrounds Road overlay, or not? And then a sub-question to that, would the board feel comfortable, based on the notice that was given, including it for this hearing? So if this language is put forward to hearing, should that be removed entirely for the language that is brought to this coming hearing? And then if it's decided to be added in, it could be added in at that hearing and renoticed to make sure that that's covered.
So when I thought about this earlier, I was thinking about the fact that the language you're talking about is a summary, and by definition does not include everything. And the two-family could be understood as, it seems like a gray area, whether that could be like still subsumed within the changes we're making as not necessarily being in the summary, but still being in the broader language. That's kind of, might be fudging it a little bit, but it is a summary. So I don't know to what extent a summary has to include, legally speaking, everything, if it's a summary for a public hearing.
I think if we're asking this question, it means we need to put it forth as an amendment
So
in the second hearing.
are we still
Would be
talking
my
about
suggestion.
two-family homes specifically?
Two-family dwellings.
So if you, well, my only point is that if you can choose either the conditions of the fraud or conditions of the underlying traditional zoning, the ag zone permits two-family dwellings outright, and then the highway commercial allows them by special exception.
With different dimensional requirements.
Right, that would be the key difference. So you could, under the if you're saying I'm doing my permitting under the ag zone, you could do a two-family at the minimum lot size required in the ag zone. The difference of adding it in this overlay would be, if you're opting into the overlay, you could do it at the dimensional requirements of the smaller lot size.
I see.
So
Okay.
I guess it's really a policy decision. So the process as it is, the board does have the right, after the language has to be put out for the public to review in advance of the hearing, which is scheduled for the 7th. So at that hearing, after the feedback and discussion, the board can then amend that language and then renotice it, including specifying, the new things that may be added or removed based on that for a second public hearing. So that would be the process there.
And to clarify, at this point, we're going to need to renotice it anyway, because we only noticed for one hearing at this point, if I understand correctly.
Correct. So we notice one at a time to allow for
yeah.
changes to be made at the
So,
first hearing.
I mean,
if desired.
We
This
could just
means
go
that-
the safe route, like, as Rebecca said, and not include it, and then talk about it at our first public hearing. Frankly, I wouldn't even mind doing it by right, but
Does that mean you have to mail letters out to everybody again?
We will in
Either way.
either event. for the second public
Oh,
hearing.
But if there is a second hearing, you have to.
Renotice it regardless.
I think at this point, we're assuming there's going to be a second hearing. We usually do 2 hearings, and it makes sense to get lots of feedback.
And then the board, yeah, like I said, I mean, the board has the right to, based on the feedback and discussion at that hearing, make further amendments, and then clearly specify in the new notice for the second hearing what those are, or if something's removed, you just, you wouldn't.
Can I also,
renotice it.
just to change the subject for a second before I
Yeah.
forget, point out a typographical issue that maybe will come up anyway. This is establishment of district section B. The fraud is as shown on the fairgrounds.
Yes, good catch.
One other comment is, if we did allow for a special exception for a duplex, 2-family, how would that change the size of the lot? Would it have to add square footage to that 10,000?
It would be the same additional square footage required for a special exception in the single-family zone. So it would need, I think that number in here was 7,500 extra square feet.
7,500 onto the 10,000.
I believe that's correct. Yep, and it would be, so basically it would be, if that were added under this, it would be following exactly the same as single-family. So in single-family, it is, under the proposed changes anyway, it would be 10,000 is the minimum, but an additional, okay, so it is 5,000 additional
5,000 or
land.
15,000.
So the 7,500 seemed big.
Yeah, that was, yep, you're correct. It's
3,800.
7,500 if it's with a well and septic. That's what I was, yeah, so, yes, I believe it would.
Yeah, my preference is to just, push that out to the second hearing, since we didn't get a chance to see this until.
Yeah, I
Until this
kind of need a
evening
little
and-
time to
yeah.
digest this myself.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel the same way, because I know in the last meeting in the minutes, we said that the fairgrounds overlay was people really liked the idea of it, but we also thought that these overlays needed a lot more attention, because we don't have them, we don't have the experience with them, and I just thought we were gonna put a lot more thought into it, so I totally agree, push it out at all. It just needs to be done right the first time.
And this one seems mostly pretty straightforward. And yeah, that could be clarified then at the first public hearing, what we want to do.
I think really, well, I have further things to say about how we present this, but that might not be not just this, but all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think we can talk about that after we wrap up our decision on this.
And I will note, just as a point of information, so now that I suppose all the language for amendments 1 through 7 has been received, and presumably whatever is decided about this fairgrounds overlay, that will be given back to us very soon after this discussion as well. We'll give all that to legal for review prior to the hearing. So if any changes are needed, those will be able to be made before noticing another hearing. So we'll definitely make certain to have all this at legal prior to that first hearing, provided we get this piece back
So-
from Barrett at that time.
With the caveat that this might change at our first public hearing, or after our first public hearing, can we get a motion just to confirm that we are sending this along as written, maybe with a couple typographical changes to public hearing?
But without the
Without, for now, the 2-family for the first
These
public hearing.
regulations.
Yeah.
So moved.
I have a so moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, so moving on without the 2-family at this point. And if we could deal with the shown there.
Before we get off the overlays, I was reading the notes and at the last meeting, you decided not to move forward with the 10 overlay.
So,
Time anyways.
at this time, it's going to be a more complicated overlay in some ways than this one. And we want to get further feedback and input before we move forward with it and write it up so we don't rush it through and make a mistake. And so there's that part of it. And there's also the consideration, especially with a more complicated overlay, of we're already giving the public a whole lot to look at here. And so we're not moving forward with that. We're also at this point not yet moving forward, although we would like to, I think, many of us, based on previous discussions at least, with a inclusionary zoning ordinance as well.
I think the idea with the Tenny Mountain overlay is that it's important that we make it happen, but it was just, and this was the recommendation from the Barrett team, that it's just it was going to be rushed at this point and not done thoroughly.
So we still are going to be working with them for several more months into the new year, and quite a bit, in fact. And so the goal is to get language while we're still working with them that we can use the following year. We may still make amendments to it based on public hearings and such, but at least to have a kind of basic framework to work with.
Yeah, I was just reading the notes. I was a little surprised. I actually felt at the meetings I've been at that was more supportive than the Fairfield, or Fairgrounds, Fairfield's town, Fairgrounds.
I think it wasn't that it wasn't supported, it's just that we didn't have the structure for it that was ready.
Rebecca, you had a comment. So since we're in like other business from members of the board and staff, you had a comment about public outreach and presentation of this.
I just think we need to be really careful very deliberate about how we present this, and I think it might be good if different planning board members present different amendments, so it's not just John describing everything each time. I'm happy to take on one of them, I just need to know which one it is, and just come up with some pretty deliberate bullet-pointed language that helps describe it. We usually introduce the amendment to the public, but I think, yeah, I'm happy to take one.
So I will say another part of this coming from the HOP committee is that Matt and I will be doing a video with Dan, an interview where we're talking about these amendments as well and trying to present them in a kind of digestible way. And we haven't done it yet because we didn't have the language, and now that we have the finalized language, we're going to try to do that. Or we're
Just show
going
the
to do that.
video instead then? I'm serious.
Sit back and
Well, it's nice to get it out there first, but I think we can do our own.
I mean, I'm happy. No, I'm not trying to get out of the work. I just think if it's a deliberate communication, like that might be a good thing.
I mean,
I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
I will say my last interview with Dan went like, I forgot how long it was, like 45 minutes or something. So I'm not sure we want to sit through like a movie during our planning board session.
Okay, so no, whatever.
So I'm not sure if this one will go as long. It might be shorter just to kind of keep people interested. In some ways, I
suggest if we're going to do like an interview to describe these, I'm wondering if they should be broken up. Have 7 short videos, so if somebody is unclear about Amendment 6, they could just watch that one video.
Good point, actually.
Over and over again, instead of having to go through 4, 5, 6, 7.
So maybe like an introductory video, and then 7 or whatever it is more.
7 short videos that you can click on any one of them on the website just to see them.
That actually might not be a bad idea, Phil. Thank you.
That makes it more digestible.
So like an overview of the whole process, and then jumping into separate ones.
That would be my thought.
Yeah.
I can tell you how much I hate scrolling through all the garbage on a YouTube video when I'm just looking for a little bit on the end.
Call me garbage.
No. I'm saying there's a lot of content out there that like has good information in it, but you have to like get through all the garbage of them talking before you get to the good content. No.
That's okay.
You are not garbage.
I'm just having fun here.
I'm trying to break it up into digestible bits so it's easy to access for the public.
I'm not opposed if we do want to. I mean, we'd have to decide at this meeting if we do want to go by a non-traditional format where it's not just me kind of plowing through all this.
I don't think it's a non-traditional format. I think this is what we tried to do several years ago. I think it's more engaging for the board,
Yeah.
and I think it's maybe slightly more interesting for the public to not be
Okay.
listening to the same person. But,
Yeah.
it sounds like maybe it's beyond the scope of this meeting for us to figure out, so maybe it will just be you talking about each one of these.
If people are prepared to talk about various amendments, I'm happy to, if someone says, hey, do you mind if I do this one? I'm happy on the moment to hand it over. I'm not sure
I
we're
don't
gonna.
think we're handing over the chairship. We're
No,
just
no,
handing
no,
over
no,
the
no.
description of the amendment itself.
No, I
But
understand that. I
but
understand that.
Yeah, so it's,
John, you never seem to overlook anybody.
Try not to.
honestly, I'm just trying to take the pressure off you having to go through all of this.
It's a lot. I
But if
know.
it's,
I'd like to make a motion that we give these students extra bonus points in the whole meeting.
It hasn't even been 2 hours.
Can I get a second?
Wasn't this exciting?
Yes.
Good answer.
Now you're obligated to go to town meeting and see how all these zoning amendments that we're talking about get voted on.
It's the day before town meeting.
Right, no, that's true. That's true.
Well, officially,
You go see the outcome.
it's the first day of town meeting.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Which is not actually a physical meeting.
Town meeting is generally in March, but
We have had town meetings.
these
that
go on
aren't-
the ballot, so people vote on these.
Yep, which is, the ballot is heard the day before.
day.
Rebecca
Yeah,
has an
the
interest
first,
story
day
with
one.
this.
First day.
The first day.
I'm not gonna
Some
mention.
towns do the ballot and then vote to have the deliberative session like that Saturday.
SB 40. I think that's what they called it.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. As opposed to SB 2.
SB 2.
Well, it was 40 was in there too.
Okay.
Keep us on track, John.
Any other further business from the planning board or staff?
I got a motion on the floor.
Oh, you do actually.
I got a second.
I'm not sure we have the authority to grant them extra credit, but I'll give you a second in spirit anyway.
Try.
Well, I can give another brief update on, I've been kind of here and there when things come up on the Wildflower Lane situation. So it's continuing to progress. So you may have seen, if you've been up Fairgrounds Road recently, that actually they have, my understanding was that they were going to actually start paving today for that Wildflower Lane middle cul-de-sac. So town's engineer has been looking into making sure that they're meeting all the requirements and engineering details of the plan and everything like that. And he has a representative who's should be observing the construction and things like that. So it's as per the development and phasing agreement from the original approval. This is, I believe it's actually phase 3, because phase 1 was the model homes. Phase 2 was the portion that's currently built out. Phase 3 is this middle cul-de-sac Wildflower Lane. But they've chosen under that agreement, instead of bonding the construction of that road and starting to pull permits, they've chosen to, at this point anyway, build it out before starting to pull permits on the houses accessed along that road. And they also have to coordinate with the water and sewer district to make sure that they are installing the water and sewer infrastructure accordingly, as there are in-street water and sewer lines that have to go in, drainage infrastructure.
Make sure we get those as-built.
Yes, yep. And Mike Vignali, town engineer, or KV Partners, the firm, is monitoring all of that and making sure that everything is installed per the approval. Not sure if,
Pike Industries is shutting down their asphalt plant at the end of business tomorrow. So they got to do it if they're gonna do it.
All right. So I think, Neil, your motion has.
Oh, it's still on
I
the floor?
seconded.
Yeah.
Wait, did you second it?
I seconded.
Yeah, I call the
I
question.
think that was a second in spirit.
It's a second. I said I questioned our authority to grant extra credit, but
I heard the question
second.
of the authority. I didn't actually hear the second. So we actually have a motion and a second. So we have a motion and a second, which means officially we actually have to put this to a vote, unless someone wants to rescind. So, is there any further discussion?
No.
Guys,
Decision, you need findings of fact, remember.
Oh my gosh.
no. So we have a motion and a second to
I think Neil called
give
the
extra
question.
credit to the students who have stayed so long. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Motion passes.
The motion passes. I'm not sure what authority we actually have.
You gotta send a note to them.
It's at least a recommendation for you.
Have to give John the notice of decision to sign.
Have him sign.
Yeah, I just,
Thank you, Neil.
Are you still entertaining motions? Or do we still have?
I think
We
we're on
haven't
public
adjourned yet.
comments at this point.
We have not adjourned yet.
No.
no, we
Other
took a
public
detour.
comments? If you do, please come up and identify yourself.
Hi, I am Anthony Sousa. Should I list where I? Okay. But the astronomy club wanted to build an observatory on the rooftop of the snack shack behind the high school, and I wanted to ask how that would look to the board. Is there anything necessary for us to pass that and get that established?
It's a municipal property, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, governmental
So we
use-
might have an opinion, but really, we have no authority to.
Yeah, it
School
would
board.
actually, you saw a great example of that this afternoon with the solar array project, which is actually a town-initiated project. So there's a state statute which dictates that governmental uses of land, which includes school districts, towns, cities, states, university system, etc., do not have to follow local land use regulations, provided they,
To clarify,
yes.
it's not just that it's the entity that's
Correct.
government. The use has to be a government use.
For a public purpose.
For a public purpose. So if a government decides to do something that's not for public purpose, they do not get exempted.
Correct. Yep, that's a good,
Sounds
it's a
like
good
public
point.
I think even if it wasn't a government use of space, it probably would be less than the square footage threshold, and it's not a change of use, so I feel like it wouldn't even meet the threshold to come to the board if this wasn't a.
It's for an educational purpose.
But as far as opinion goes, that would be fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sticking
Might
it
have
out.
to consult with a school board.
They might want to know. Any other public comments?
It's awkward with no podium.
You can pick it up if you like.
Just for
And you would be?
Matt Yeton, taxpayer. Just for clarification, so I can put a camper on a piece of land and get it permitted with no sanitation facilities, correct?
Well, the approval would have to be subject to the building permit, which would be reviewed by Tom under section 403 temporary uses. So as long as he meets the requirements under that section, which the discussion tonight was really more about the class 6 road liability waiver, but actually he'll still, once the select board approves, he'll still have to go through the actual permit review by Tom, assuming the select board approves and the waiver's filed.
So that permit review isn't with you guys.
It doesn't have to go to the
You
plan.
can go like right to the,
And it is a
right to the
te-
planning board.
And it is a
the
temporary use, so
select
you
board.
can't camp out there permanently all year long.
Less than 120 days.
Right.
Well,
go to
the
the-
guy stated tonight he's doing no sanitation facilities, but that's still fine.
But he should have onboard water and sewer in a camper.
Right, but that, according to
Well-
the state's RSA, that's not sanitation facilities. being
No,
on board.
he can have a holding tank and.
Right.
That's not, according to the state RSA, read through the state RSA's, a holding tank is not sanitation facilities for an RV.
Right.
It needs to be a designated off of, I can't remember the definition specifically, but like a holding tank is not a sanitation facility. So I just want to, but that doesn't come in front of you guys. So like, I
No.
put a camper somewhere.
You need a dump station.
Yeah, and that's sort of what it says. Like, you need like a designated, I don't forget the term they use, but like designated dump station on site.
It doesn't have to be on site.
No, I'm sorry, not on site, but like, so
Available.
you need to be able, you need to like get it exactly. So, but that's not like, just like thinking in the future. That's not a planning board thing. Like you guys don't.
No.
I don't need to have you guys say that. Yes, you need a septic system or a dump site or some type of sanitation facilities.
That would be a permitting issue.
We
Just-
tightened up
that's
our
a
temporary use of
permit.
structures section in the zoning ordinance last year specifically to address this issue.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we did what we can to, and it is mostly a sanitation issue.
But that's just through like permitting through the office, through the planning board.
Yep, so you'd go right, I mean, unless it was on a class 6 road. So class 6 roads have the special process where they need the permit, any building or development, even if it's just a shed or something that requires a regular permit. That permit actually needs to be approved by the select board, and the planning board's has to review and comment. So ordinarily, this would just be a request to Tom Newcomb, the building inspector, for that temporary use building permit. And I just looked in the zoning, and it looks like RSA 216-1:4 is the sanitary facility. So
Right.
he would need to
Follow that. But that's really Tom.
that would be
or
part of
Kevin, yeah.
Tom's review, but the select board needs to look at the, the appropriateness of approving the building on the class 6 road.
Assuming we're on a Class 6 road.
Assume if it's on a class 6.
So this could have happened 5 other times this week, but we only saw this one because it was on a
It
class.
was on
6 road.
class. Okay, all right. Thank you. Cool. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Yep. Any other comments?
Is Frank still there?
Yes.
Jeremy Heinrich, Thurlow Street, but very interesting, lots of fun. As a member of the public, I would like to support the idea of these multiple videos. I think it'd be very forward-thinking. If it's worth the effort, it would be certainly something new, perhaps, for the town.
Well, you did some informational videos in the past.
Not a
I
bad
believe.
idea.
Not new,
Well,
but maybe more digestible.
Well, the broken
Yeah,
up part,
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, smaller.
And in part, so me and Matt were going to be doing those, and as long as Dan, who's going to be taking the videos and editing them, agrees to make multiple videos out of them, then we should be good to go.
And it was Jeremy's son who came up with the idea that he wanted to see small homes in Plymouth, and then
I remember that.
here we are looking at smaller lots for smaller homes.
Mm-hmm.
So you started that.
Not quite, yeah, not quite tiny home scale, but like we're
Smaller
getting
home.
smaller though. Yeah.
But tiny homes are allowed.
Yeah. Well, depending on which model you follow, but yeah.
Did you use the word tiny?
I think we did use tiny, we used small.
Small.
Okay.
I think we used compact living.
Mm-hmm.
Put 'em
Any
on
further
skids.
comments? All right.
Motion to adjourn. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Just had login cams.
Thank you for staying.
wrapped around.
Where's it not to?